Hey, if you are somebody who has almost two, not necessarily two target markets, but two offers, and you've had a main target market, a main buyer's persona, and you want to offshoot to another option, another offer that you need a little bit of a different target market, or you really do want to open up to a second target market, this can be very confusing when it comes to marketing because you don't want to muddle your message and you don't want to confuse your audience. So Claudia and I today are talking specifically about this problem of what do you do when you have two different offers that need to go to two different types of people. And Claudia actually did a lot. I'm so excited for you to hear what she has to say today. I know that I look like a little bit of ghost in the dark because it's so dark here in Syracuse. So my apologies about that. But let's dive in. So Claudia, let's talk about this problem of the client who has two different people that they need to serve. Where should they start?
Well, interesting that you mention it, because usually in these conversations, you and I pick up a topic and I can jump in it with 2 feet with my eyes closed. But this one, I really had to put my thoughts in a row before we had the conversation. And I think the first decision, it's a business decision. So you need to assess from a business point of view, and not a marketing point of view, but a business point of view, which of the two options you have is in alignment with your business goals. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the first question. Let's suppose that both of them are in alignment with your business goals. Okay, both can help you. Then the second question you have to ask yourself is which of the two options stands a better chance to bring you money and to allow you to grow your business. Even let's suppose you have one option that's more developed than the other one, right? So you have option A, who is developed, and B, who is your new idea. Check which of the two has a market that's really needy of that solution and aware of the problem, because that is what's going to ease your path into the market. You need a target that needs to understand they have a problem and needs to be willing to search for a solution. Then the second question, or the third question you need to ask yourself is, at which level of development is your business?
Yes, this is a big one.
This is a big one. So, for instance, if you have a first product, A, who's working perfectly and it's practically on autopilot, bringing another product or service with a different target will be less stressful on your resources. And by resources, understand time, money, etc., etc. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because one is already working, you know where you need to be paying attention, you have learned the tricks of the trade, so you can use your lessons learned with the first product when you develop the second product. The other scenario is when both products are on their very early stages. This is calling for problems because it's getting into a minefield. You know, you will be practically duplicating your problems, duplicating the stress. So if that's the stage where you are, I would drop it for the time being. Mm-hmm. The third scenario is when you have a product that's not working well, you don't want to ditch it, and you add a new one. What I would do is first figure out why your product is not working, and if before ditching it or, you know, adding more stuff, you can tweak it to make it work. Because if you haven't been able to make one work and you don't know why, then adding a second problem is going through the same road. So that's not going to help. So ideally, the best scenario is you have a product or service that is working, that you know the ins and outs, and adding another one will not cause you major stress. Mm-hmm. That would be. So this is from the business point of view. Then comes the marketing point of view, because once you need to market your business. So in my eyes, and this is a conflict for me, because I advise my clients to go one idea, one service, one target, one promise. But of course, there are moments where you grow, or that you can use the same capacities with slightly more effort and still reap the benefits. But still, two services, it's like managing two companies.
Yes.
A little bit. Not exactly, but a little bit. Because at some point, you will need to have your people making choices, and you have to make choices as well. So let's suppose you have a service or a product that is interesting for human resources managers and for employees. Okay? The website is the easiest place where to separate the journeys. You have a homepage that acts as a portal, and then you ask, are you an employee? Click here. Are you a human resources manager? Click here. And each go different ways. But it's not the same on social media, and it's not the same when it comes to content.
Right. That's the big problem, right?
And that is the big problem, because then you start to dilute your message. And your message becomes a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So what you have to do is split the platforms where you are going to look for your people.
Okay.
So I would do, for instance, if you do for your employees, I would do Instagram and LinkedIn. Oh, that's a trick. You see how it starts to become tricky?
Yes.
And for the human resources managers, definitely LinkedIn and some business forums, where you can be and networking. Then, once you have decided on which platforms you're going to look for your people, you need to see how are you going to approach the message. Because in my eyes, there are two ways. You either look for the unifying aspects, or you go for the things that are completely different. And then you have to create a message for one and a message for the other one. Content for one, content for the other one. And that is extremely time consuming.
It is, especially since most of the time content is the last thing anybody wants to work on in their business for their main business.
Yeah.
One of the clients that I have inside the membership has, she's an organizer, but she also helps people with their decor and styling their rooms, so their space all over the place is more peaceful and beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so in our call that we had, we talked about how to not confuse people. Am I a stylist and a decorator, or am I an organizer? And so I asked her to go up kind of 10,000 feet and say, what do these people have in common? What do they want? And that's kind of going to what you're saying, like, what is the nexus that these people have in common quality wise? What is their problem? What are they looking for? And meet the message here rather than these two different buckets.
Yes. And then again, like we've discussed many other times before, positioning yourself as an organizer or as an interior decorator is focusing your skills strictly on processes.
Yeah. Yes.
And sometimes you can achieve the same result with a different process. So if you focus your message, and then again on the commonalities of the two things, the two groups, then you can focus on the final result instead of how you're going to get there. Maybe a clear example is a bridal shop.
Okay.
You have brides and you have bridesmaids.
Right.
And they are completely different targets because the role of each in the same event is different. The bride is supposed to be the most beautiful, the eye-catching, etc., etc., and the bridesmaids are there just to make her look better. Mm-hmm. But all of them are looking for a dress, and all of them are looking to have success on that day.
Yes.
And it's tricky because this is the other thing that is like a bear trap. How different is a bride from a bridesmaid? If you look at it really with standards, it's a target and a sub-target, because without bride, there are no bridesmaids. Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of very, very tricky to do it. But I would say devote different channels to each of your groups. And some content, you can use the same content and just change a bit, tweak, for instance, the headline. Going back to the human resources and the employee, you can write an article about which are the 5 mistakes employees commit during an interview.
Mm-hmm.
But for employees, you can say 5 tips to nail your next interview. And it's the same.
Yes.
It's the same content, but you're switching and tweaking. But it definitely asks for a lot of organization, asks for automation wherever possible. And you want to make sure you get the right message to the right target. It's kind of very tricky, I would say.
I think it is tricky too. And I would never want, so one of the people who are in the membership have a brick and mortar, and she's got a nice business running for herself, giving services out of the brick and mortar. And then she wants to kind of sublet the brick and mortar so that other similar service providers can come in and use it. And I would hate to see her start a whole new social media channel with a whole new set of content pillars, like all of that work, when what she's looking for is to fill a very local brick and mortar at certain times of the day. And what I was wondering for her, if her marketing could be more of the relationship or the affiliate marketing, where she kind of puts the word out to local service providers who could come in, rather than her having to start all over again. Yeah. Or even direct people to her website, where maybe she's got that idea of, if you are using this kind of service, or if you want to use my building for this kind of service, like the 2 different portals to go in and have that customer journey. But yeah. I think going back to your initial questions about, how much capacity do you have to start this second channel? How successful is the first business that you're running working? And do you have is it kind of on autopilot so that you can put some energy into this new thing? I think all of those are really important questions. And how much of this can be done by your current audience? Like perhaps if you ask them, hey, this is who I currently help. Do you know somebody who's looking for this? So that there's, is to let your audience who already know and love you help you do some of this heavy lifting.
Well, one thing, and this is looking at the coin from both sides. In the example you're giving about the brick and mortar, if she sublets to people giving complimentary service or things to what she does, she can change the concept of her business slightly.
True.
And focus it in a 360-degree kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, trying to think of an example. Let's suppose I am a bike repair,
Okay.
And then the people can use my space to teach lessons how to ride a bike safely for elder people. And at the same time, I can have a place to sell accessories for bikes, or scenario routes or maps or whatever. Right. This is a very basic example. But then you would think of that as a bike center thing.
Yes.
But if it's the people to whom she's subletting the space work with a completely different target. Let's say one works with kids and the other with young adults or adults. It might be the same service. Let's say classes, education, pottery. I don't know.
Right.
But it's so people start to see, okay, what's going on here? I thought this was something for kids, and now I'm seeing adults. What's going on here? So that can fire back. Something that you thought. So maybe revising the content, the focus of your business, and instead of focusing, let's say, on kids, you focus it on education, or 360-degree educational support for kids. Then it's a logic change. But if it's going to cause her a lot of more work than,
These are all great questions to ask yourself before you jump in. I have another client who has a very strong business that's up and running, and she really wants to, I wouldn't say pivot, but kind of branch off. And I've actually had a couple of clients do this, where they branch off and they almost have a separate arm of their business. And it's a natural arm. It makes a lot of sense. But this first business has to be very well established, because if it's not, it's just, this is what's taking up so much of your time. But at this point, when this first business is running and you really have done all of those little steps that we're talking about, like you've started maybe with just 2 portals on your website and you've asked people for referrals and you've mentioned it to your audience, then it's time to start a new social media presence specifically. When we're talking about social media, we have to like talk about like, when is it time to make that leap and have a whole separate channel? So I think you've given us a lot to think about, because it seems like it would be easy, but we don't want to make more work for you. We don't want to make more marketing for you.
Yeah. And you know, this thing of having 2 targets is more common than I thought it was.
Yes.
Because
yes.
usually the thing as a marketeer, what comes more on my path is people who are selling a product that's for one target, but the decision maker is a different target. For instance, I do baby food, so the babies are the consumers, but the parents are deciding. Or I help kids, but the parents are paying for the course or the training or the camp or whatever. So where is, and that there I have, you know, but there is actually you know, like health services. Are you a caregiver or your parent? Both are giving care, but it's a different way, a parent or a family or relative that's helping you through a health issue than a professional caregiver who's helping you through a health issue. And then babysitters are caregivers as well. So then, you know, you have to really think very well, who are the people you want to serve, and above all, the people who are going to help you grow your business. So what is the best target for you? Who's the people who's most receptive to your message? And stick to it until you're really making money that you can live from your business, really, and more.
I think
you will need the buffers, and you will need a lot of to branch out. Definitely. It's
there's so many nuances here. I'm thinking of like the teenager who needs a therapist, but really it's the parents who are going to hire that therapist. It's probably the parents who are going to find that therapist, right? And then have to convince the teenager. The elder parent who needs, for example, I have a client who she's a chef, and she basically helps, you know, elderly people in their homes, but it's probably the children who are in their 50s or 60s who are getting that message and hiring that person. So this is a very, like, you really have to think out who's receiving your message, who's making the decision, and how is that person then going to, I hate to use this word, but convince that the person who's they're hiring for needs that service.
That will be part of your content strategy. So that's part of the. So if you take the rule of thumb you have with your content, right, which is when I create content, I either answer aim and goals or questions my target has that they want to have answered.
Yes.
Or resources, you know, if you split it in that, aim and goals in the case of these caregivers is making sure that my parents are being taken care of and are not in an abusive thing, that I will be paying a lot of money, and, you know, and that I have peace of mind. That's what you actually said. But one of the questions, a blog or content about questions is, how do you convince your parents that this is a good thing?
Exactly. And so you just weave it into being part of your content.
The arguments to your parents. So, you know, 7 tips to help your parents accept that they need external help.
Yes, I love that. So
you know, that's how it works. You work to the person who is receiving the message and is also taking the message. So actually, you will always have more than one target, and your content will appeal to the surrounding people of your main target. It's all how you balance your content. But then again, like you've said so many times, what is the purpose of the content you're creating? What is the ultimate problem you're trying to solve? And how does it fit in your overall marketing strategy? How is it helping you to grow your business, solving somebody else's problem? So it has many faces, these two things.
It's so interesting. And so I know that you and I both talk about one offer, one target, one message, you know, that make it as streamlined as possible. But there are times when we have to maybe speak to somebody else, and that might be a separate offer. It might be that we have 2 audiences. So I feel like you have given people, I still look like a ghost today. I feel like you have given people so much gold here in terms of questions to ask yourself before you make the decision to splinter off or to pivot. And then some real strategies to get you doing that work without blowing up your capacity, without expending the time and energy and money that is so precious to all of us.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome.
As usual. I know that working with Claudia, I personally work with her. If you get on a call with her for a discovery call, she actually gives you a discovery call that's not selling you anything. She actually gives you a real, I think you should call them strategy calls, because that's what I think they are. They're really strategy calls. But I'm going to put the link to
the moment I spot the problem, which is usually the first 3 minutes, they get like,
I know. So if you are looking for somebody to kind of plug that hole in your marketing strategy, if like at the beginning, like we talked about wanting to blow up your business, wanting to leave your business because that's not working. If you just actually find somebody who can help you plug that hole, all of this will be a lot easier. So,
thank you, Jen.
Okay. Thank you, my friend. Every week we're here talking about marketing problems. So drop your questions below. We're happy to address them, and we're happy to answer your questions. Thanks, Claudia.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.